Vice President Kamala Harris introduced her new running mate in Philadelphia last night, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. CBN's Dale Hurd has more on his background and his politics.
Vice President Harris says she picked Minnesota Governor Tim Walz because she was looking for a fighter for the middle class. The 60-year-old Walz spent 12 years in Congress, served in the Army National Guard, and was a high school social studies teacher and football coach.
Coach Walz and I may hail from different corners of our great country, but our values are the same. And we both believe in lifting people up, not knocking them down.
Even before he was picked, Walz made an impact on the campaign by calling Donald Trump and the Republicans weird, a line he repeated last night.
You know it, you feel it. These guys are creepy and, yes, just weird as hell. That's what you see. That's what you see.
The Trump campaign calls Walz dangerously liberal. Trump running mate J.D. Vance said the choice highlights how radical Kamala Harris is.
But I think that what Tim Walz's selection says is that Kamala Harris has bent the knee to the far left of her party, which is what she always does.
Walz signed a bill allowing abortion up to the moment of birth and signed an executive order allowing trans surgeries for minors. In 2020, he delayed sending the National Guard to Minneapolis to stop riots that broke out after the death of George Floyd. He's also defended socialism.
Don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Well, CBN's chief political analyst David Brody joins us now for a closer look at this new vice presidential candidate. So, David, what were the reasons behind it? Why Walz and why now?
Well, it's a double down on the base. Ultimately, Gordon, elections are all about getting out the base, the enthusiasm. The Democrats need to get the entire base out. And that this was a base pick. They are aligned from a progressive, liberal, some would say socialist standpoint. And I think that's important. Look, I was talking to a Democrat strategist last night who said this makes sense because Walz, they're hoping Walz will bring in that white college-educated voter, the white suburban type voter, can play in the Rust Belt, but can also play in the Sun Belt in terms of Arizona and Georgia. That is in essence what they're hoping for from Walz. And I've got to tell you, last night's rally with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, it was very, very good stylistically. You know, there's the policy stuff that we can get into, and it's ultra liberal with all caps. And then there's what they're presenting, which is the stylistic portion of this. Kamala Harris, I tell you what, she was very good last night. Yeah, she was on prompter, okay, but she was very good. She seemed to be in the moment. She seemed to be measured and calm. Tim Walz, or Coach Walz or Mr. Walz, the teacher for 20 years in the public schools, they're painting an entirely different kind of uplifting message, which will be interesting to watch as the campaign goes on.
Well, he's certainly a very experienced campaigner, 6 terms in Congress. He comes from what is called the pivot counties. It looks like they're trying some kind of strategy to shave points from Republicans in rural America. When you look at those pivot counties, they can decide a national election. At the same time, I'm really surprised they didn't pick Shapiro out of Pennsylvania. As a battleground state, would he have given you Pennsylvania and with that taken you over the top on the Electoral College? Why not Shapiro?
Well, there are a couple things in mind, and I'll start with the geek part of me that looks at the website 270 to Win pretty much every night after 8 p.m. Eastern, which is kind of a therapy issue for me, I think, to a degree. And when I look at that, look, even if Democrats win Pennsylvania, picking Shapiro, let's say, and winning Pennsylvania, that doesn't get them over the top. They're going to need to win at least 2, probably all 3, of the Rust Belt states at this point. So just because he delivers Pennsylvania doesn't secure any sort of electoral victory in the final analysis. There are a couple other factors. Josh Shapiro is really, really good as an orator. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Obama. He could have overshadowed Kamala Harris, which is the last thing you want as a presidential candidate. And then finally, the elephant in the room that's no longer the elephant in the room, the far left of the Democrat Party has an anti-Semitic angle. I call it an angle. They have a contingent that is anti-Semitic. There's no doubt about it. We've reported it here on CBN News. Josh Shapiro is Jewish. Now, some people say it's because he was Jewish. I don't buy that. Look, Bernie Sanders is Jewish, and the far left anti-Semitic folks in the Democrat Party love him. They'll always take a convert Jew to the cause if you're with them. But Shapiro was very critical of the anti-Semitic protesters on college campuses, and I think that was clearly a part of the factor here.
Well, I think they're trying to create a difference between are you a Zionist, and that's now become the new rallying cry. And it's clear they're going for votes in Dearborn, Michigan, and that's exactly what they're trying to do. Let's talk about the messaging, because I think it's very important in this media-driven election cycle. It seems the charm offensive for Harris has really worked. It's been amazing, the momentum she has. Her now vice president is coming out swinging, saying, I'm really glad to be on a ticket where I know the president isn't going to call for a mob to hang me. Then you get into, they're weird. That seems to be the catchphrase of the day. It's amazing to me that on top of all of that, they're accusing Trump of being a coward for ducking out of one debate in order to be on a different platform. And I find that incredible, because here's the guy who got shot, and then in the middle of all of that, he stands up and seizes the moment. Even the head of Facebook said, I've never seen anything like it. And so how have they been so effective in just changing the messaging?
Well, first of all, you're right, Gordon. And you can call Donald Trump a lot of things. Coward would not be the word for sure that comes to mind. He's the exact opposite of that. Well, a couple of things. First of all, it's all been very controlled. The media has not pushed her. They're giving her a honeymoon. The honeymoon will continue for a while now. She hasn't done a press conference. She hasn't done any interviews. Let's see what happens when she's off prompter in a debate and does an interview, at least one or two. And then let's have a different conversation. We might be having a different conversation at that point. So we'll see. But I will tell you this, what struck me yesterday at the rally was a couple times, or at least 2 or 3 times, that Tim Walz said, thank you, Kamala Harris, for bringing back the joy. And he kept using the word joy. And you get a sense, not that this is Hope and Change Part 2, circa 2008, but they're trying to strike a more optimistic tone. Because the threat to democracy, the stuff that Biden was peddling, wasn't working. The doom and gloom wasn't working. I think they're trying to go optimistic. Typically, people vote for an optimistic vision. I think Kamala Harris is going to have to lay out that vision. She hasn't done that yet specifically. And then finally, Biden, listen to me. I'm calling you Biden. I'm still calling you Joe Biden. I don't know what's going on. But let me just say this. There's a great book, Political Brain, by Drew Weston, a professor at Emory University, a psychiatry professor, talked about people vote with emotion. And when emotion and reason collide, invariably emotion wins. And that's what we wait to see what happens here. We wait to see whether or not the facts and substance and policy and their liberal records will win the day for the Trump campaign, or if this groundswell of emotion and new energy wins it for the Kamala Harris, Tim Walz ticket.
Well, let's talk about the Trump campaign and its messaging. He seems to have really, frankly, messed it up. I mean, to go after the vice president for her race was an absolute mistake. And I just don't understand why he's doing that. Are they going to get the messaging right, or are they going to get the focus on policy and what the election means from a policy standpoint?
Well, there's a PDF strategy, and then there's the reality of strategy. The PDF strategy says, yes, that they will point them out to be both dangerously liberal. Whether or not Trump stays on script, that's a whole different matter. He's been pretty disciplined up until Kamala got in the race, and then things kind of went a bit haywire. So that's a concern. But look, I'm not going to go through the whole list, but whether it be abortion, where there were 5 children born alive during the Minnesota tenure of Tim Walz, he lifted restrictions on life-affirming, saving care. to those infants. There's that in his history. There's free health care and free college and driver's license for illegals, legal immigrants. And there's so much more. I mean, he signed a bill that allowed for tampons to be put in the boys' bathroom. I know it's a difficult subject to discuss, but that's the reality of what he signed into law. So, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. We haven't even gotten into so many other things. So there's a treasure trove. This should be an easy layup for the Trump campaign, but nothing's been easy in this campaign for really, honestly, both sides.
Well, I'll borrow a phrase from the Democrats. It's going to get weird, and it's going to be even weirder. And David, you're going to be very busy this fall. Thanks so much for your insight. Thanks for being with us.